What's going on, champs and champettes? It's FireMonkey here, and we are on Payday 3 once again. I know I had already technically reviewed this game. As I mentioned, I got a free review code for the game, and it allowed me to play a few days early, and how it was, a pretty solid experience and everything else. However, now that the game is officially released in a way where everyone can play it, including the people over on Xbox Game Pass, I wanted to go ahead and do an update video, especially since there's been a lot of controversies going on regarding the game right now, and as you can see by my screen, for example, one of those controversies is right here, a matchmaking error while we were trying to go into a invite-only lobby, right? A solo lobby where I wasn't actually going to invite anyone and I was just going to use AI. We got an actual matchmaking error going into that, and it kind of plays into what all the issues with this game currently are, where it's like, we know that the game is in this weird state, right? We know there's a lot of stuff going on, and how in my original review, I simply talked about how the game felt and everything else, actually playing it or whatever, but one of the things that, I didn't get to experience is how it was going to be at launch, and I think this has honestly been, and I'm allowed to say this because they didn't pay me to say a good thing about the game or anything, the only thing they paid me with is a free code of their game. I don't really agree with how everything's been handled recently, right? Because one thing is, we've had stress tests before, we've had betas before and stuff for this game, and those betas were very close back to back, and there were a lot of issues in those betas, right? There was issues where you were unable to actually queue up with friends, you would have to have people leaving their match, going into new matches and everything else, because this whole entire menu and everything was glitching. Some people would matchmake in the game, others wouldn't, some people would get stuck on the loading screen while other people are getting in the game. There were a lot of issues, and even during the actual beta that was open for everyone, and it was like a public stress test type of thing to try crashing the servers crashed 2 to 3 hours before the designated time for them to even stress test the servers began, meaning that, they were highly under expecting what was going to happen with the game. They were expecting everyone to hop in a specific time to try stress testing the servers, and instead, by time the beta went live, right, within the first hour, there were already issues with the game, right? And I mean, I was trying to queue up to play a match with a friend or whatever else. I managed to play a match before me and them got together to play one together on my own, and right when we started queuing up, we had some issues with parties and everything else, but then the whole entire server, the whole entire login server for your profile and everything went down to the point where the game was unplayable. And what we will do once again is go over here to an invite-only session, and we will try to matchmake for a lobby, right? We'll see if we get in. Keep in mind, invite-only, meaning that I'm the only one there with AI, right? I'm not going to actually invite anyone to my session or anything, but you would think for something like an invite-only lobby, they would do something like a peer-to-peer connection so that they don't have all these extra servers running specific people going into games or whatever, but no, instead, the whole entire game is strictly online and linked to your whole entire account and everything else for Payday 3, the Starbreeze, Nebula account, whatever else they call it, and it makes it a very difficult situation overall to actually play this game, because I get one benefit of being always online is, oh hey, you're able to actually not worry about anyone, having issues when it comes to hacking the game or anything. That doesn't really worry, that's not a worry or anything else, because, everything's handled on your servers, so you don't have to worry about any of those issues at all, right? And instead, it's all detectable in a lot of ways, right? But if you have a situation where a game, for example, like this is invite-only or whatever, where you're in a solo lobby on yourself, where there isn't things really being controlled by the server other than maybe your account, it's a lot harder to tell if someone is hacking or not, and I can understand why they may want to prevent that type of stuff from happening in Payday 3, but if it's been a few days since the game's actually released, because keep in mind, I'm recording this on September 23rd at 11:28 p.m. Eastern Time, so it's very, very late in the night, and I can't even queue for a private match of the game. There's definitely got to be some issues going on there. Now, I want to mention that, when I made my review the other day and I was talking about how I really enjoyed the game, in terms of everything else going on, that hasn't changed. I think the game is fun when you can play it, but I definitely think that right now, with the game being released for multiple days and for the servers being hammered for multiple days to the point where no one can even queue for a private match, there has to be changes going on, because they already have DLC planned for the next year for Payday 3, yet we might not even get a chance to play the DLC because of how the servers are being handled, to the point where I feel that it needs a lot of upgrades, not even just to the servers or whatever else. I think they need to, go through and kind of de-modernize some things. things, because even in the loadout and stuff, right, when you actually go to some weapons like the Car 4, you can see it and everything else, you can purchase another weapon, you get this menu that shows when they all unlock or whatever. But when it comes to, you know, another matchmaking error right there, I'm just going to stop queuing up because we can tell that's not working. But when it comes to actually like modifying a weapon, you know, I've tried double clicking this because you would think double clicking it would actually open up the menu or whatever. Clicking that 3, nothing works. Instead, you have to look in the bottom left, see the specific prompts it wants you to use, such as R to customize and T for cosmetic, which is a very dumb system, because if I think of customize, I'm not going to think of like a site or something. I'm going to think of, you know, like the actual cosmetic stuff you see right here. But I think that they could have done this a lot better in a more easier way where you can just click something. Now I assume on controller maybe it's easier or whatever else, but it just feels so odd with how they're handling of the whole entire menu and everything else. And even like another thing I gotta mention here is the stat changes. This is something that, you know, Call of Duty had modernized and fixed a lot of the other times before in their newer CODs, is when you have a normal weapon, you can see the ammo is 30 of 300. You put on extended mag, ammo is 45 of 300, but handling goes down by percentage red bar. Is that a lot? Is that a little? I don't know. You can keep your funny little bars that go left and right all you want, but I think having an actual number count, so I know specifically what it's increasing it or decreasing it by, would be something that would just make it better, right? Something that would just make these menus better, instead of being like, oh, the combat mag, you know, you get less ammo that you're actually able to shoot at once, but you get 100 extra reserve ammo, and your handling goes up a little bit. But if we look at the quick pull mag, handling goes up a slightly bit more, while the actual ammo doesn't get modified at all. So maybe I wanted to use that one over this one because handling's a little bit better that way. You know, it's a lot of just guessing and a lot of stuff that shouldn't be an issue at all. And I know this might just seem like a complete 180. It's like FireMonkey, your last video on Payday 3 was super hyped up for it. You're like, yeah, you got some free stuff. Look at all my free suits and everything. Thank you, game developers, for the stuff. And now it seems like you're being a little too harsh. And I can understand why you would think that, and I can understand where it's coming from. But we got to keep in mind that when that first video came out, I wasn't focused on specifically the loadout and the menus or anything, because I haven't touched any of this stuff. What I was focused on is the main gameplay mechanic. And, you know, when it came to the loadout, the most focus I had was over the different characters, right? You know, over the different masks and stuff you're able to actually equip and use in game. And it wasn't so much over the specifics of, oh, can you customize? Yeah, you can't even customize that weapon, okay? But it's like, oh, can you customize this weapon to have a different cosmetic or whatever? And like even the patterns, right? It's like, I don't, like, you have the base color, right? And that one makes sense, but then you have patterns, and that is where you have to actually select like a different design or whatever, and you can only apparently have like one enabled at a time, even though this just says color 1, unless you have to like buy this pattern, then buy another pattern, then buy another, or something like that. It just is so confusing, where I don't understand if this is something where you can buy multiple of these and have them like different colors for different spots of the gun, or if you can only have one pattern on at a time, which I assume might be the case, because if you look at this, you know, paint scheme 1 is only on the lower receiver, but this is lower receiver, stock adapter, grip, and stock. So it makes it a lot odder, where it's like, couldn't you have just made each part its own customizable slot that you could purchase, instead of having all these different, you know, options here that don't make too much sense at all? It just feels so odd, you know, the menus and stuff. I feel like those, once you actually get into this area, need to get a lot more improved, right? I mean, like the vendor area, this part at least is completely understandable. It's like, oh, you unlock more masks as time goes on. You can go ahead. Oh, wait, you can't. Actually, you can preview them. Yeah, you can go ahead and preview all the masks and everything, even ones you don't have unlocked yet. And then you can see all the different cosmetic designs they've got going on. You know, all that stuff is available to you. You can't preview like how the colors specifically look on things, but you can preview like these little designs, even though it's a little hard to see. And it makes sense how all that works, right? C-stacks, I don't really understand too much at all. The only thing I understand about it is that you can get this weapon right here, the Ziv Commando Kick Murderer weapon or whatever. You can get that with those currencies or whatever. But other than that, I don't know much about these, right? And it just feels like, in terms of the menu and everything else, and in terms of the actual game itself, it is in a very bad spot, where maybe they should have delayed development for a little bit to figure out how they want to go through with releasing the game. Because I'm someone who doesn't really like a live service experience, but I wanted to give Payday 3 a chance, because I was like, I like Payday 2. Payday 2 is really fun. This is basically Payday 2, but with a graphics upgrade and everything else, and, you know, a lot new menus and everything. So maybe it'll be a fun little journey to go down, but it just feels like it's impossible to try enjoying this game, because even if we go here, right, and we go for another invite-only lobby, which I know you might be like, try a public lobby, try a friends-only lobby, that's not going to change the difference between the servers working or not working, because it's all the same server. I feel there has to be some changes somewhere, right? I love this game, I want to love it, you know, I want to continue playing the Payday franchise, but even if they just make it so solo games where you're playing by yourself aren't hosted on their servers, I think that alone would be a great improvement to everything happening here, because this live service model is something that I don't want to support, because there have been so many games before that will just die so quickly because of live service and stuff, and you know, it's like once the player count goes down or whatever, we actually got in a game! We actually managed to get in the game. That is shocking. It only took us like 10 minutes into a video or whatever for this to happen, but I feel that something like that right there should be a situation where you're able to actually play it by yourself and everything, and you're able to not worry about are the servers up or down, because once the Payday 3 servers currently in this current state go down, there is no game. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can play. All you have to show for it is, well, you know, I played it before, maybe I have a photo or a clip somewhere of it, and that needs to change if this game's ever going to succeed. I mean, especially with how terrible of a launch this has been, how throughout multiple days now the servers have been having issues, there has to be some sort of change that actually happens, or else I feel that, you know, the game's just not going to succeed in the long term, right? I feel like, you know, the terrible launch and everything else could make more people wary of actually trying to purchase the game or playing it on their own, because they're like, there's so many reports out there about how throughout multiple days the servers were just unplayable, right? You were just unable to play it. You were unable to even go in a private match to try out a submission by yourself, and you would have to wait multiple minutes just to try out a game, to the point where I can completely understand if they end up deciding, yeah, you know what, we're going to kind of shut down the game later down the line, and that would be something that I wouldn't want to see, because, you know, I think that all they would need to do in order to keep the game running in a certain way where people would enjoy it and play it for years to come is to quite literally just go ahead and make it a game that you can play like normal, you know, without being connected to the internet or anything, even if it like has lower XP gain or something, right? Just having a game that is in a better made system where we're able to continue playing it regardless of what's going on with the Nebula account servers or whatever else would be a major benefit to the game. And another thing I've heard from some people is that when they're playing these invite-only lobbies, they're still receiving lag, right? Because, you know, you're not connected to just your own computer or whatever else, you're connected to the Nebula servers, so if you're playing like I am right now, where you have these bots following around and everything else, there's a chance that maybe you'll still be lagging around just because of how everything is handled, right? Just because of everything technically being online 24/7, there's a chance that, you know, you might just glitch into the ceiling or something, or lag into it or whatever else, because there's no other way to really go about it, right? And it's just kind of sad to see, because I want to see Payday 3 succeed. I want to see this game continue to grow and continue to be the successor to Payday 2 or whatever else, but in its current state, it feels like that's not possible, right? It feels like it has a long way to go, and maybe the biggest thing that they could have even done originally would have been to just delay the game a little bit, so that we would have had a time where we could, you know, sit back, improve the game or whatever, figure out how to make it so we could play offline or whatnot, so we don't have to worry about the Nebula servers being on or off at all, and make it so it's an experience that is enjoyable for everyone. Now, is it enjoyable when you're able to actually play it? Yes. I don't think that part of my review was wrong or anything. I think that the game is a fun thing that you can play whenever you want. I mean, you can sit here all you want. You know, I'm going to turn down the audio a little bit here, but you can sit here all you want. You can ping a guard as many times as you need to, just to have some fun or whatever else. But in terms of how the game itself is being handled, you have to wait a million years before you can get that experience where you have some fun. You have to just continue waiting and continue going on until you can get that one match where you can just have a fun little time near you. So with that said, I hope you champs and champions enjoyed today's little bit of a rant, you know, a little passion rant or whatever else about everything happening with the Payday 3 like area or whatever else. You know, it's definitely an interesting spot where, oh, that jump scared me, but it's an interesting spot where I feel that they could have improved a lot, but of course we may not see that improvement in a fast enough time before we end up having an issue where it's just like, well, you know, the game's kind of killed itself. It's kind of rolled over dead, and there is nothing to really see anymore. So until next time, hope you champs and champions enjoyed today's video. If you did, consider subscribing and support the content I create, and I will catch you guys next time with another upload. Peace out.